What's going on, guys? JD here. And today we're going to be talking about one of the brand new features that were announced by Adobe, States. Let's get into it. All right, so as you can see here, I've basically created a web 1920 by 1080 screen because it's not going to matter what size the screen is. We're going to effectively change it using one of the dope plugins that I have found in the Discover area called Print Artboard. So we're going to go to that area, scroll down here to plugins. We're going to go to Discover plugins. You can either click the search bar or you can click browse. It doesn't matter, and type in Print Artboard. Now, as you can see, Adobe's changed a little bit how you discover plugins. They've added ratings and other things just to make the experience a little bit better. So you might have to scroll a little bit to get to Print Artboard. But for me, it showed up here in the left-hand corner of the screen. Go ahead and give him a vote as well because they do amazing work. I've already installed it, so I'm just going to get into it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to hit Control Shift F, my bad. It's going to bring up the Print Artboard settings screen. Now on this screen, basically what you're doing is you're choosing the size that you're going to make, whatever the size paper that you're going to make. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and do 300 DPI, which is, standard in the print world. And then I'm going to select letter as my size, which will give me a width of 8.5 inches and a height of 11 inches. And of course you can reverse these yourself if you want to, flip the script a little bit. So I'm just going to go with the portrait, going to hit save, and then I'm going to hit, with my artboard selected, I'm going to hit Control F. And that is going to make my artboard the size, the correct size, as you can see over here in the settings, of what a piece of paper would actually print out to be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to edit this scrolling. We're going to change that to none because we don't need scrolling in paper, of course. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to take a look at the grid. Now, for you might have the layout grid first or the square grid, depending on what you choose, but I'm going to choose the square grid because that's what's going to help us achieve what we need to achieve today a little bit easier. So I'm going to zoom in and you can see here that it's set to an 8x8 grid. Now I'm going to change this to a 38 size grid. It's looking kind of nice there. And then I'm going to come in here, get my square tool, and right on the grid here, I'm going to create a square. Let's make it 8x8. Not too big, not too small. And then we're going to center this in between the grid line. All right, from here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this border off. We're going to color this down like a grayish color, just so we can see what's going on. And then what we're going to do is something a little unorthodox. So with the announcement of States, you can do some really cool, incredible things, but I thought, why not create graph paper? Graph paper is something that I use every day in my workflow, and just thought it would be kind of amazing to see what we could accomplish with both the repeat grid and States in terms of graph paper. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to make this a component by hitting Control or Command K. It's going to make it a component. And as you can see, you get the default state over here. Now, it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around states, but it is ridiculously amazing once you understand what's going on. So we're going to name our component .grid. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make this a repeat grid. Okay, so this is going to allow us to repeat our dots all the way across. You just click and drag. You're going to drag this down. What I want to do is I want to size this up. So I'm going to size this to 68 wide by 68 tall. Okay. And as you can see, we're starting to kind of get the makings of a nice graph paper. Looking pretty good. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this down a little bit and shift this right in the square, and you really only have to pay attention to the first square because everything else, now that you set it to the grid, should match. I'm gonna just drag this over a little bit, Now you might experience a little slowdown here because we're pushing the boundaries of what Adobe XD can do. I really love doing that whenever a new program comes out and I really want to kind of test what it's capable of. I just kind of go at it full force. So that's what I did with Adobe XD when I first learned, and I'm doing it again with these new features. Just really pushing the boundaries here. So now I have my dot grid, and I'm going to select my artboard and just kind of disable the square because I don't need it anymore. And look at that. We have a really nice piece of graph paper here. But we're going to take this a little further with states. So what I want to do is, got our little dot grid here. I'm going to create a state, new state. And we're going to call this circle. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to scale or size our square to look like a circle. So I'm just going to use the corner radius here to blow that up. And now I have a circle grid. Now, the main thing with this is you just have to make sure that you're on the state that you need to be on to make these changes. I'm going to click new state. And we're going to call this one cross, because sometimes I like to work with cross grids. They're a bit fun to kind of work with. Now with this one, we're going to return the state of the rectangle back to 0 on quarter radius. Then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this. I'm going to turn my let's turn our grid back on so we can see what we're doing, because we don't want to lie blindly here. Go down in here into our rectangle, make sure that we're on the right state, we're on the cross state. We're going to duplicate this rectangle, and let's make this 2 wide. Feel like that's a good old round number. I'm going to shift this to the center here, and 2 tall. All right, get that right in the center there. When we zoom out, now we have this beautiful cross grid populating all the way across the board. And you could do some really incredible stuff with this. It's just super amazing what you can do. So if I go back in here and go to my circle state, say I don't like gray, say maybe I want like a bluish hue to my grid, kind of a light blue. You can kind of set that like that, and now I have this really nice looking color for the hue. Now, as you can see, getting a little bit of slowdown, but like I said, I'm pushing the boundaries of XD here. So what we're going to do to kind of cut back on this processing is I'm going to Control D to duplicate this grid. I'm going to hide this one. And then what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to group it inside of this group. We're going to call this grid. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ungroup the actual grid. All right, so now it's no longer repeating anything. It's going to create a ton of these different components. Okay. You could still roll like this if you would like to. But for me, what I want to do is I want to do something a little different. So I'm going to ungroup again the components so that I just get, my circles. I'm going to right click this again. We're going to make a path, and we're going to add this to one union. And I'm going to right click it again, and we're going to convert this to a path. So now I have like a full path where I can move around, and you'll see XD is, back to normal again, to its normal, fast and quick self. And now if I want to change this, to be the color that I want it to be, I can do that with ease and speed. So, and then once you're done, you can just change the name of this, and we'll call this dot grid. Control E to export. We're going to change this to PDF. We're going to hit export. And when I come over here to my my little setup here, now I have this beautiful dot grid that I can now print out for myself and use for building my wireframes or whatever it is. So what do you think? It's pretty incredible what they've done with states and what you can produce if you just look around a little bit, play around a little bit, get that creativity flowing. It's amazing. States are amazing. You've done it again, Adobe. Thank you. Thank you. Well, hope you got some insights. And until next time, keep it up, and I'll catch you later.